Hello again, and welcome to week 3 of year 3. This is day 3. A lot of threes going on here. So, we're continuing now with the Gospel of Matthew. Last time we saw the birth of the Lord and how wise men came from the east seeking him and went to Jerusalem to ask where the child who had been born King of the Jews had been born. We saw King Herod summon the chief priests and scribes and ask them where the Messiah was supposed to be born, and learn from them that Bethlehem was the place that the prophet Micah had foretold. So this time we will see Herod send the wise men to Bethlehem, and we'll see him ask them to come back and tell him where the child was. Then Herod secretly called for the wise men and learned from them the exact time when the star had appeared. Then he sent them to Bethlehem, saying, "Go and search diligently for the child, and when you have found him, bring me word, so that I may also go and pay him homage." When they had heard the king, they set out, and there ahead of them went the star that they had seen at its rising, until it stopped over the place where the child was. When they saw that the star had stopped, they were overwhelmed with joy. On entering the house, they saw the child with Mary his mother, and they knelt down and paid him homage. Then, opening their treasure chests, they offered him gifts of gold, frankincense, and myrrh. And having been warned in a dream not to return to Herod, they left for their own country by another road. Now after they had left, an angel of the Lord appeared to Joseph in a dream and said, "Get up, take the child and his mother, and flee to Egypt, and remain there until I tell you, for Herod is about to search for the child to destroy him." Then Joseph got up, took the child and his mother by night, and went to Egypt, and remained there until the death of Herod. This was to fulfill what had been spoken by the Lord through the prophet, "Out of Egypt I have called my son." When Herod saw that he had been tricked by the wise men, he was infuriated, and he sent and killed all the children in and around Bethlehem who were 2 years old or under, according to the time that he had learned from the wise men. Then was fulfilled what had been spoken through the prophet Jeremiah. A voice was heard in Ramah, wailing and loud lamentation, Rachel weeping for her children. She refused to be consoled, because they are no more. Now, this is a passage that we usually read in the church during and immediately after the feast of the Lord's Nativity. And it always feels out of place to us because we want to celebrate Christmas as a time of joy and happiness and family togetherness. And then we come to church and we hear this story about babies being slaughtered. And it's an ugly thing for us to see. It's hard to talk about anything else in this passage except for that. There's more going on here. There's the way that Matthew talks about the prophecies. There's the way that he uses what anyone up to that time would have understood as a description of Israel being brought out of Egypt. This is God calling his son, Israel, his firstborn son, as he says, out of Egypt, and bringing them out of slavery into the promised land. And yet Matthew uses this as a prophecy of the Lord's coming. We can talk about how this is, in fact, exactly what the nation of Israel is functioning as, is doing. It is prophesying by its very existence the coming of the promised one, the coming of the Messiah, the Lord's anointed to save his people, and is also being the vessel through which the Lord accomplishes this. We can talk about this. We can talk about any number of things. We can talk about the fly buzzing around my face. But we have to talk, too, about this reality of grief, of sorrow. We have to acknowledge that the Lord's coming, his birth in Bethlehem, did not immediately and instantaneously resolve all of human sorrow and suffering and pain. And facing this, which we know to be true because we ourselves who follow Christ, we still suffer, we still sorrow, we still experience loss, and we still die. the answer that the Lord gives to us is simply that he has not left us alone in this suffering. He does not abandon us. Indeed, he is with us, threatened by this, present in the world, working healing and salvation, even as Herod is working his evil, even as Herod is doing these horrors. And we should be comforted too in the course of our lives. Whatever we face, whatever struggles we have, they're still happening. They're not gone, but the Lord is with us too. And if we trust him, it's not that we will be delivered from and escape all of these things, but we are assured he will bring us through. And even out of the brokenness, out of the darkness, out of the sorrow, even out of death, he will bring life everlasting. We cannot have the gospel, we cannot have the resurrection without death. We cannot have restoration and joy without passing through the sorrows of this world. But God is with us, and this is important that we remember. So that's it for week 3. God bless you all. I will see you next week.